Hey, what's up? Zach here, and these are my top 5 favorite tennis shoes for the start of 2024. Here we go. And if you do want to pick up a pair of any of the shoes on this list, I will leave links in the description below. Let's get started with the number 5 shoe, which is seen, honestly, I think it's been on almost every top 5 list I've done. Tennis, pickleball, and outdoor basketball. The only thing it has been on is indoor basketball, and that is the New Balance Coco CG1. And the reason I still like the CG1 so much, specifically over the 996 V5, which I love, as well as the New Balance CT Rally, is its versatility. It is just as good of a kind of a lightweight mover shoe as it is a more maximalist lockdown shoe. You can play coast to coast from one doubles alley to the other, just as well as you can play doubles itself in. It also is the best shoe if you want to play tennis, pickleball, and outdoor basketball with the same shoe. It's just a super rugged and just great moving shoe for the profile that you get. I am really looking forward to the next iteration of the Coco shoe, the Coco CG2. I just really hope it's still as good as the CG1 is. And coming in at number 4 is a tie between two shoes that I really feel like are two sides of the same coin. The one is one of the most improved shoes out there. The other one, just a real kind of tried and true hitter. And that is the A6 Gel Resolution 9, as well as the 2023 Adidas Barricade. And the reason I put these two together, number one, I do think that they're both kind of one of the best shoes out there, but they kind of accomplish the same goals just in different ways. They're both incredibly rugged mover shoes. They're both very kind of low ankle collared, easy to maneuver shoes that also deliver some of the most rugged footwork that you can find. They're also both really exceptionally low to the ground feeling, even though the A6 Gel Resolution 9 really isn't that low to the ground. It still does have a ton underneath of you. The Barricade though, from the 21s to the 23s, was just a quantum leap. The 21s I thought were really hard to put on. They were cramped all the time. They were hard to get tight. The laces were breaking, the eyelets were breaking, I should say. The 23s though, all they did was stop with the elastic shoelace eyelets and then put a really nice rugged counter on there, fixed up the uppers a little bit, and all of a sudden, it's one of the best Barricade shoes that I personally have put on. I feel like getting that really rugged TPU here in the uppers of the shoe that is the same tread as the outsole tread really gives probably the best grip of any sliding shoe out there. I mean, you can get just as much push off if you are completely everted as you can as standing still. So I think, like I said, for rugged movement in a shoe that is this kind of low profile and low to the ground feeling, these two are the best. They just do it in different ways. And coming in at number 3, if you haven't guessed that this shoe is gonna be on this list, well, thank you for tuning in the first time to my channel, and that is the Diadora Blue Shield 2002. Now the Diadora Blue Shield 2002 in some form has probably, I think, been on every single top 5 list, going from like the Blue Shield 4 or 5 all the way now up to the 2002. And that's because they keep the same best bones of the shoe in every iteration of the shoe, right? They really don't venture really far from what works. Number one, it's just the ridiculously supportive Blue Shield in the forefoot that gives so much forgiveness. It's the fact that the heel counter and the shank, which is external on this one, work so well to keep your foot kind of cocooned in the shoe, right? These things are like armored tanks on your foot. Now, they're not the speediest shoes in the world, right? But they are pretty much the most stable shoe out there. And I think really for any snake bites or anything on the bottom of your foot, really if you need to put an orthotic in the shoe, just really to accommodate anything, these are the shoes I really find myself recommending the most out there. I think even the title of one of my reviews of these was the shoe that I recommend the most. I'm pretty sure that was the title of one of them. I forget which one it was. But if you just need kind of like the everything shoe for protection, rugged grip, support, and performance, in the fact that you can just throw your body around and really do a lot of things on court and have the confidence to do things on court that you can't in some other shoes, because you just know the shoe is not going to buckle. You know that the shoe will absorb a lot of that shock. It's almost like having Mr. Rogers around your foot, just letting you know everything's gonna be okay. And speaking of all that support, that brings me to the sponsor of today's video, which is PowerStep, and specifically the PowerStep Pulse orthotics, which I've actually been finding a lot more use cases recently for, especially since I was doing reviews on the Nike Court Posit, because the Pulse has a lower heel cup and a lower heel counter versus the Pinnacle and the Pinnacle Max. Now, the reason I like that is because for tennis shoes like the Court Posit or maybe like the A6 Gel Resolution 8, and to some extent maybe the 9s, if you throw a bulky orthotic in there, or even just an orthotic with a bigger heel cup, it's gonna push out of the shoe. Whereas with the Pulse, you get the same great broad arch support that's just as good as any custom orthotic. I keep saying that in all these videos, but if you want that support, but you don't want the heel counter, then the Pulse is just a phenomenal pickup. I actually had these in the old court posits that I reviewed at my college tennis weekend. You can watch that video, I'll leave a link in the description below. But I've really found more use cases for these in people that want basically more of the arch, but don't need all that cupping around their heel. Now, if you're somebody with Achilles tendonitis or really bad plantar fasciitis, anything that's really caused by that micro motion in your heel, then yeah, you're gonna wanna go with something like the PowerStep Pinnacle or the Pinnacle Max, which does seat you into the orthotic more, versus if you're someone that wants just more arch support, right? Or you want something that's going to take pressure off the ball of your foot, then putting the Pulse in your shoes might be a great compromise to not get any of the heel slippage, but get all that great PowerStep arch support. So if you wanna check them out, I'll also leave a link in the description below. And that brings me to the number 2 shoe on this list. And if you would have asked me a few years ago when I reviewed the previous version of this shoe, if that line would ever get on the top 5 list, I just couldn't see it. It just seemed like that line of shoes was just, you know, a soldier without a country, right? It just didn't match up with any real world performance, or just didn't match up with, I think, enough players. But the update, oh man, just blew me away and just surprised living daylights out of me. That is the Lacoste AGL T23 Ultra. Now, the reason the Lacoste not only makes the top 5 list, but gets into the number 2 slot, number 1 is Lacoste put, I think, just the best foam in this shoe for a lower stack shoe. Remember, these are not maximalist shoes by any stretch of the imagination, but because the shank is so supportive, and because they put that, what they call that laser foam, whatever, it's basically just like a PEBA type foam in the forefoot, it is so forgiving, so they don't need a ton of it. And because that shank is so supportive, you're not going to bottom that foam out either in the forefoot as fast as you would some other foams. The AGL T21 Ultra, the foam was really stiff. It was really just it just was an unforgiving shoe. The shank was, it just didn't really do, I mean, I know it was supposed to be a speed-focused performance shoe, but all the other things about it, I really felt like just kept pulling it down. You couldn't extract the performance out of it. Whereas the 23 Ultra, everything about it is there for you to extract performance out of, right? It's the fastest shoe on the market right now, at least in my opinion. It's one of the most comfortable shoes on the market, has some of the best lockdown on the market, and breathes wickedly well. So if you're really putting a lot of hard miles on a hard court, these are gonna breathe well, they perform exceptionally well, and they protect your foot really well, especially that really aggressive lateral flange on there. In terms of pure performance, and in terms of pure engineering, they more than deserve the number 2 slot on this list, at least in my opinion. And as in most of my lists, I do want to do one honorable mention. Let me see if I can get it. Yep. And that is the Lotto Raptor Hyper Pulse 100. Now, this shoe is good enough to be in the top 5 or even in the top 1 or 2 slots. It has been in the past. It's just that sometimes they're really hard to find. In previous reviews I've done, I've said the same thing. They've been honorable mention just because you can't find them as readily as every other shoe out there. So I think if the distribution, is more widely available, and you can get them in more places, then for sure that they'll be in more top 5 lists. But in terms of raw performance, and if you can find them readily available, this shoe is just as good as any other shoe on this list, if not, maybe a little bit better. And so that brings me to the number 1 shoe on this list, which I'm sure a lot of you have already guessed, and that is the Mizuno Wave Enforce Tour. And I thought really long and hard about the shoes that were gonna be on this top 5 list, and I still have just not been able to find a shoe that does as many things well as the Wave Enforce Tour does. It's maximalist enough to keep you secure, but it's also nimble enough to give you that really nice kind of easy footwork underfoot, right? The shoe is not holding you down. It still has the best lockdown of any shoe out there. So no matter if you just want a really rugged lockdown, or if you're putting orthotics in your shoes, braces, or just want a good lockdown, this is where you get it. It also still has kind of the best feel underfoot to me. I haven't been able to find a shoe that just has as smooth of a feeling underfoot. No, it's not as stiff of an undercarriage as some other shoes out there, but to me, no matter what kind of game you're playing or what you're trying to accomplish with your shoe, the Wave and Force Tour kind of has something for everybody, and it does it in a package that does not sacrifice performance, right? So to me, this is still the complete package. I'm looking forward to 2024 to see what other shoes come out and what can dethrone this, because this has been the second time this has been the #1 shoe on this list. And like I said, I mean, all the shoes on this list can do things that this shoe can do, and I'm sure for a lot of people, some of the shoes on this list are much better for their foot than this one. That's why I create an ultimate tennis shoe buyer's guide to find out what is the exact shoe for your particular needs that is the best. And if you want to check that video out, I will leave that linked up above, and make sure you subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.